It's August 5th, 2021. This is Roqe. Well, like wine and cheese, or weddings and excess, or rock guitars and distortion pedals, there are some things that just go together, for better and for worse, and Persians and cars surely fall into that category. But it's not just owning a car, it's the brand, the price, the status, the ability to show it off that means everything to Iranians. Why? How? When did that happen? Today, two very popular experts on cars and being Persian, Vahid Amiri Moghaddam of Cars I Have Driven, and Ali Bekhradi of the very popular Garage Bekhradi channel, to discuss all things auto and obsession. Plus, we have a new edition of It's All Persian to Us. This is stories from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 133 of Roqe. Sadosiose, Kian. That's
wow, I actually did
teaching
not
you the
know
numbers.
that.
That's the numbers
you
in Persian.
You are such a smart person.
Sadosiose, not siosat.
Round of applause, everybody.
Hope you are keeping well wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Salam دوستان عزیز, درود. امیدوارم که خوب و میزون باشین. 133.
One more time for the
Yes,
chief.
well, I'm just making sure you understand the numbers.
No, one more time.
Hello, the fabulous Kian.
Hi, Jian.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Gravishaya.
Hi.
And hello, Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
Cars. ماشین. اتومبیل دیگه. اتومبیل خودمون. BMW. It's like an Iranian version of cocaine.
Yeah.
The way we carry on about cars. Actually, cocaine is the Iranian version of cocaine. But these days.
Really,
But not that, but.
Would you like to discuss cocaine some more?
I believe it or not, I'm pretty zero tolerance right now. But it is popular, but not as popular as cars.
That's
right.
Let's face it. What is it with? Why are Iranians so into cars? Why is it always the BMWs, the Mercedes? How are we different from non-Iranians when it comes to cars? And is this all a myth? Are Persians actually not that into cars? No, that's bullshit. They're into cars.
I was like, what?
Are you kidding?
Are you even? Is that
Vahid Amiri Moghaddam, who already wins the prize for longest unnecessary name. Vahid Amiri Moghaddam. Say that, Kian.
Vahid Amiri Moghaddam.
Amiri
Moghaddam.
And you got to get the Ghomeshi, Amiri Moghaddam.
Okay, you're moving on.
He's in Montreal. He's got this really popular site called Cars I Have Driven. Mm-hmm. And Ali Bekhradi, who's in Houston, Texas, who has Garage Bekhradi, which is also a popular site. They're going to both be on the line at the same time so we can explore this question of Persians and cars. And now, I know, I'm going to talk about this when I do the interview, but I've never been a car guy in terms of it being a way to demonstrate status, or in that sort of traditional Persian way. I like my British Mini Coopers, and that's what I've stuck with. Different versions of them, the convertible, the Countryman, the whatever. But that's what I stick with. I had a BMW I got to tell these guys when they're on. I had a BMW for a week once. Yeah, and in that week, my parents took pictures of it with me, and they sent it to all the relatives and stuff. And then I gave it back. I just couldn't. It just wasn't me. It just wasn't. It didn't.
You don't like the attention?
I didn't. It just didn't feel like it's like wearing a shirt that doesn't feel like you. Like it just wasn't my vibe.
Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with it. BMWs, cocaine, do what you will, you Persians. Not my thing. But I mean, I get it. They can be beautiful cars. I like nice like Audis, for example. I don't think that's on the list of things that Persians like.
It's BMW or Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah.
That's
Like
it.
a 1970s idea of what, a good car. But anyway, now I know that Groovy Shia, who's looking more and more like Plato with each.
Socrates.
I mean, if it wasn't Musa. He looks like Musa. But he looks like Isa and Musa, both of them at once. He's got the beard that's long. It's gray now. I mean, I don't even know when did it become gray. It was not
so gray.
It happens over time. One gets wiser.
That time being a month. I mean, he's walking around in robes. Anyway, I'm guessing Shia Jun, our fabulous, talented Shia, the man behind Dang Show and some great musical creations, etc. The artist. I'm guessing cars are not that big a deal to you.
No, never. It's
Right.
It's what, yeah.
So now I knew that. I knew that. Now Reza, Captain Reza, a captain, but that's more of a nautical term. He's like a captain of boats and the Navy.
Yes.
He's not nothing to do with cars. Now Captain Reza, I'm guessing you're going to tell us you're not that into cars, but you did a series about cars.
That's right.
Right? Which you
Yeah.
directed, I think.
Yeah, I produced it. I
Not
wrote
only
and
that, but
produced
what kind of car do you drive, Reza? I mean, this guy who carries on like, I don't make enough money here. What kind of car do you
it.
drive?
I drive a Mercedes.
Right.
C300. It's just
Even
so-
the C3, whatever
No,
that
I
means.
don't know these
It's
things.
not that big of a deal.
Now,
like it's not
Keon, the
fabulous
I can't wait
Kia.
for this.
I don't know why I don't know what kind of car you drive.
I don't care for cars.
Oh.
I like it doesn't. Maybe because I'm a bad driver. It's just I prefer being driven, to be quite honest.
Right.
Yeah.
When your butler drives you, do they have a certain kind of car that you want them to drive?
It
Or?
doesn't matter as long as there's air conditioning. No, really, I don't get the appeal. Like why
You
people-
prefer any kind of limousine is okay with you. It doesn't
any
have to be a certain
kind.
brand. No,
Uber.
you really don't care about the brand of your car.
No,
So-
I don't. I mean, I drive a Volkswagen. It's a
Volkswagen.
that was picked by my brother. He's
Oh.
like, it's a good.
It's an
car.
SUV
It's
though.
an
I've
SUV.
seen her drive
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Volkswagen.
I like Volkswagens.
Price wise, it's worth as much as my car does. So don't worry about it. She's
But
driving.
still,
But Reza, you're someone who claims to not
Yeah.
buy into the
No, I don't.
tropes and stereotypes of being Persian.
Yeah.
Why do you drive a Mercedes?
Yeah, why?
I got it for my girl. I'm not joking. It didn't make zero difference.
You mean you got it? You didn't buy it for her. You bought it to please her.
I bought it to please her.
Because she's like, you're embarrassing me.
Can you
I don't
believe
want to.
this?
I don't want to
Yeah.
get into your shitty Honda.
I wanted to get a Lexus, believe it or not.
right.
I wanted to get a Lexus.
You wanted to go
So-
down market to a Lexus.
So what you're
This
saying?
conversation is, I mean, there are people listening to this right now who can't afford these things. And I thought you were one of them.
Yeah, I
But
used to
you're-
be. I'm doing pretty well right now.
All right, yeah. You make some good films. That's
So what
for
you're
sure.
saying
right.
is you're whipped by your girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you appeased.
But
her.
that's not the subject of the show. The subject of today's show is cars and Persians.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice
That's what
save there.
different
You got it for your. Like he says, I
That's
got it
so
for my
funny.
girl.
Yeah.
Meaning, I thought first the impression is, he bought her a car. What?
you kidding?
He bought himself a car to please
Yeah,
her, so
that's
that.
right.
So she's happy about it.
So what happens? See, I thought it was bad enough with my family. Meaning, you can't come to pick up your. Now I know your girlfriend, wonderful person,
Yeah.
but you couldn't pick her up in a Honda.
No, that doesn't.
You know
that
what I
doesn't-
heard?
See,
Actually,
I would
Doesn't
wonder.
fly.
Well, I would wonder. What I mean, do you really want to be with someone who
You
judges?
see, I thought about it, and it was an evaluation process. She's got so many other fantastic qualities that I let this one slide.
Because I remember
Compromise.
once buying a very quirky colored. Actually, before I bought the Mini Coopers, I had a Volkswagen, and because I change cars very often because I like to always have something different, and so I leased them and whatever. And I had it was a very very quirky colored Volkswagen, which I would end up calling Little Dijon, Gian and Little Dijon, driving around Too bad Oogie wasn't around at the time. And I remember agonizing about this because some friend of mine had sort of shamed me. You're really going to buy that? You're never going to get a date in your whole life and all that. And then I remember talking to my sister and her going, you really want to buy are you saying that, isn't this a good way to judge who actually really likes you, who cares about you? If you pull up in a car and it's not a good enough car for someone, you want to be with that person?
I'd say most Persians would probably they wouldn't date someone that doesn't.
That had little Dijon.
Well, I mean, as my brother who just got back from Iran a few months ago was saying that, and it was his first time in 10 years. He was saying that because there's no clubs or bars or restaurants, girls walk the streets and basically look for the nicest cars, and then they exchange numbers that way. That's their club.
That's interesting.
We are talking about a certain elite here who can afford these cars, but I will say, and I want to bring this up with Vahid and Ali Bekhradi. I know someone who, actually I know more than one person, but somebody who isn't doing that well financially, but put all of her money into getting a fancy car because that's, she just doesn't invite anybody over to her small, tiny apartment. And they see the car and they go, look how successful she is. I mean, it's a very strange culture. And that is not, it's not like other cultures or people are immune to that kind of thinking, but it's really a particular thing with Persians that, or maybe it's an immigrant thing. Anyway, we'll ask the experts about that. We are coming to you on roqemedia.com. It is there that you can link to all of our platforms. We're on an ongoing mission to build a new audio-visual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. We're coming to you on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, CastBox, and Telegram. If you'd like to see some visuals with Roqe, switch over to YouTube right now, or Instagram for that matter. At Roqe Media is the handle. And if you like your Roqe descriptions and bulletins in English and also in Persian, our Telegram channel is our bilingual channel that has Persian writing. Hey, we really appreciate it if you guys become patrons of our program. So you can go to roqemedia.com. That's the website that has it all there. All of our episodes, our guests, our Roqe Funnies, our Roqe Reads, all of them are there at roqemedia.com. And there's a button on the top right-hand side that says support us. You can become a patron for $5 or $10 a month or more. And that helps us crowdsource this show and keep it going. So roqemedia.com. Speaking of which, a shout out to Arash and Anita Fazelipour. Love these two. They are life partners and business partners. They are the founders of myterms.ca. Myterms.ca. This is a mortgage company in Ontario, Canada. They're both born in Iran, but grew up in Canada and the States. They decided to go into business and life together almost 20 years ago, and they have a really good record with myterms.ca, focusing on the service aspect of the mortgage business. They are very well reviewed online. They make it a big priority as well to give back to the Persian community as well, and they're helping make this episode of Roqe possible. Arash and Anita Fazelipour, myterms.ca. I have no idea what kind of car they drive. Kiana.
Oh, you should ask.
Yeah.
Should I?
I don't know.
It's not enough that they're good at mortgages and helping people. Myterms.ca. As well, a big thank you to Arash Behzadi, for helping to make this episode of Roqe possible. Arash has an entrepreneur business side, but these days he's better known as a pioneer in piano yoga. He's played piano for 30 years, but more seriously in the last decade, recording, composing, collaborating with other artists. He's a yogi and has practiced yoga for many years and feels piano music can make the yoga practice go deeper. So he does piano yoga, the soul and vibrations of the music, plays intuitive piano, all about improvisation and energy during yoga classes and festivals around the world, Bali, Dubai, Turkey, Canada, Italy. His new album is called Soul to Soul, available on all platforms. A good place to find him is on Spotify at Arash Piano. That's also, I believe, his Instagram. Arash.
Arash Piano. That's right.
Arash Piano. Obviously, we'll link to that in the descriptions. Check out Arash Behzadi, and a big thank you to him for helping to make this episode of Roqe possible. I should know this, but I heard that Arash Behzadi, when he was in Iran, used to write about cars.
Really?
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. He has some connection to cars, which might be why he's a yoga piano person.
Peaceful guy. And I believe he drives a Mini Cooper or something last night.
Yes, that's right. I've seen him with a... anyway, good for him. he's released himself of the chains that Reza apparently is bound by in the Mercedes. All love and respect to people, by the way. It's like insulting Musa and Isa. You have to say a respect to people who have the BMW and the Mercedes. I love you. Happy to be driven by you, but not all of us have those cars.
A team member of Roqe drives one. I'm driving one, and it's fine. To each his own.
Right.
Have you ever heard of Fulex Qurbaqei?
What?
Volkswagen, the old Volkswagen.
Oh, the
Beatles.
The Beetle, yeah.
Yeah, we call it Fulex Qurbaqei.
Say it again a bit slower.
Fulex, which is Volks. Qurbaqei.
Qurbaqei.
Like frog.
It looks like a
because
frog.
it looks like a frog, and we call it Fulex Qurbaqei.
That's very nice.
Shia with the
Thank you, Shia.
The nuances.
The more you know.
The momentum stalls again. Have you ever heard of the frog? Hey, in the coming days on Roqe, so for the month of August, we're doing some special themed Roqe shows. Next Monday, the champions, Kian. The champions. Fari Nazalari, Nasim Varaste, Afsoon Johnston.
Wow.
3 Iranian women who've all been champions in sport. That's Monday. Thursday next week, the broadcasters, Shali Zomarodi, Homa Sarshar, Pune Qudusi. Boom.
Powerhouses.
The following Monday, the Screen Gems, Shiva Nigara, Mandana Karimi, and Nekar Zadegan. This is all through August. We're doing special themed Roqe shows. Stick around for that in the coming days on Roqe. We have an It's All Persian to Us today.
Yes,
between your trips to various Caribbean countries. It could never, I never know when there's going to be it used to be in the old days, Captain Reza.
We
could count on it's an All Persian to Us. It was All Persian to Us was becoming a popular segment that the kids waited for.
Almost a recurring segment.
That's right. It was a recurring segment, actually. And now, I think we've done it twice in the last, 6. And I now sheepishly, I bring it up to, with one eye cocked, I sort of, will there be an It's All Persian to Us today? And she's like, no, I'm in Trinidad. I'm in Trinidad. I'm tanning right now.
All right, I'll never go on vacation again. How's that?
Can I ask you a question about last week, by the way?
Sure, go ahead.
Why, when you were tanning and all that?
Yes.
Why? I couldn't understand. I wasn't able to message you, or you seemingly were not getting the messages, and yet you were posting pictures and stories
like crazy.
I even tried messaging on Instagram, where you were posting pictures of yourself.
I know,
and yet somehow the messages weren't getting delivered.
It's delayed. It's the distance. The distance. The messages get delayed. And it's just how it is, Jian.
Bebin Shaya, Bachar,
پررو شدن بچه‌ها.
Go back to your BMW or whatever you drive.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
I love Kian's response. I don't care about which car brand to drive as long as someone else is driving. I'm fine.
But it's true. It's a hazard. I'm not a good driver.
Why are you not a good driver?
I don't know. Some people can't drive. Some people can. And I'm one of those people that can.
Shia, do you drive at all? Do you have a license? I can't imagine you driving. It would kind of scare me.
Yeah, right now I don't have license. About 4 years ago, I had a very bad accident, and after that, I have kind of drive-phobia, and I don't.
Wow. Okay. Well, that got dark.
He's the master of.
You didn't. Something bad didn't happen. I hope. Gene, you could have hit a dog. Remember when I took my driving lessons?
Yeah. Called you Gene.
My license, and didn't care about me hitting a human. You could have hit a dog, Gene.
And then you got beat up later.
Then I got beat up. It's a terrible story. So I'm trying to show Shia some love.
How's your
We've
driving?
all been through that. My driving is excellent.
Oh, okay. The trauma didn't affect you, I guess.
Do you know how to drive a stick, Shian?
I do. I've driven stick for years.
No way.
No way.
Yeah. I like it.
I look down upon people who don't know how to drive.
You drive a stick when you're in your Mercedes?
Not my Mercedes, but I had a.
I guess did you consult with your girlfriend and she said you can't drive stick or something? Are you making any decisions by yourself?
I had just started dating her when I got this car, and she was like, I was like, what kind of car should I get? She was like, I really like Mercedes. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna impress her and surprise her.
Hey, listen, it's beautiful. It's beautiful he wants to do these things for his
sure.
girlfriend.
Let's call it that.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I think that's lovely. Nice.
Wow, thank you.
Okay, we're going to get It's All Persian to Us coming up. Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Keon. Let's get to Persians and cars. It is no secret that Persians love cars, or perhaps more succinctly, Persians are obsessed with cars. But it's not just always the affordability, the convenience, or the need for transport that gets the pistons pumping, if you will. Rather, Persians seem to like fancy cars, and they see cars as status, and depending on the style or make, your status will zoom or break. Or is all of that a myth? Is it just my extended family that will look at me with concern when I pull up in a English Mini Cooper? Well, today, right now, let's get to two Persian lads in different parts of North America who are surely qualified to answer such sociocultural questions. In fact, they've both built huge social media followings on Instagram and YouTube by talking about cars, with pretty pictures and videos, of course. Vahid Amiri Moghaddam is an engineer and writer and the founder behind the popular Instagram and YouTube channel Cars I Have Driven. He regularly gets thousands of streams talking about and showing off everything from race cars to vintage Toyotas. He joins us from Montreal today. Hello, Vahid.
Hey, Jian, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very happy to be here.
Great to have you on the show from Montreal. And Ali Bekhradi is a former dentist, investor, and the man behind the popular YouTube and Instagram channel Garage Bekhradi. And he racks up hundreds of thousands of posts exploring custom-made specialty cars from Mercedes to old fabulous Pontiacs. And he joins us from Houston, Texas. Hello, Ali.
Hello, Jian. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have, but now here's the funny thing about this. We booked you guys separately. We were excited to talk to two movers and shakers, Persian guys who are doing a big business in terms of the number of streams you get in social media. We didn't know that you two actually know each other. And in fact, you guys did some work together and then broke up like the Beatles, right, Vahid?
Yeah, it's kind of like a same sort of story. It's like people start working together and then reach to the point that they want to be independent, and kind of like the ideas are clashing. So then we decided to have more independence present in the social media. But even after that, we continue working together. We actually did lots of video together, reviews of our cars.
You're saying you can stomach doing an interview with Ali as well?
Yeah, we're going for it.
And Ali, are you okay with this?
I am, actually. I should admit something, and I've said it in previous interviews, that if it wasn't because of Vahid, I wouldn't be a person to just show up in social media. You have no idea how many issues I had, just like being shy, camera shy. I obviously live in the States for more than 30 years. I've had problems just remembering because most of these reviews are in Farsi, or like all of them pretty much.
Yes.
So just you can imagine, you could just try to talk about something that you learn about it here. Most of the technical terms and the words that you're talking about. And the Persian crowd is pretty tough. So if you keep using English words, they're like, hey, you're trying to say you're someone better than us. And so I practiced a lot, and Vahid gave me a huge support. And I am very appreciative for what he did for me.
Well, Vahid, how do you feel about what Ali has just said?
Well, I mean, our corporation was actually, it was really good. I mean, we started something that it was pretty small, and then we built it together. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, yes, of course, sometimes we were not really accepting each other's ideas, but it's fine. It's just the beauty of when you do some teamwork. Other than that, I mean, Ali is right. You got to be really careful what you're saying in front of the Persian audience. I'm not that careful, to be honest. I mean, I use lots of English words, and I kind of like I said, but you're here to listen to me, so this is who I am.
I can't wait to get to the ideas that you guys disagree on. This sounds good. I'm excited to hear some of the disparity between you. I love both of your channels because, and I say that quite earnestly, because you're both so passionate. You're like, kids talking about their favorite toy, or people talking about this as if it's a romance. I mean, you were really, really into this. And so I want to just set the stage before I ask you some questions about what you've observed about Persians, Iranians, and our relationship with cars, and whether it is indeed mythical or whether it's the real deal in terms of how important status question cars become for us in our community, both in the diaspora and I guess back in Iran. But to set the stage, let me just ask you about this passion that I see in your videos and the way you guys write and the way you talk about cars. Ali, let me start with you. On your Instagram page, your tagline is, I love cars. Cars give you freedom to travel, freedom to express oneself, and freedom to dream. How do cars give you the freedom to dream? Don't we have that freedom without cars?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Man love for cars, it's either desire to control or real emotions. That's how I put it. For me, it's just kind of both. And just going back to what you started with, like how people, especially Persians, they love cars. One very simple fact is because for whatever reason, just the country's been closed and the border's been closed, and they don't get all the new cars, all the new products that we're just like freely here exposed to it in North America. They don't have them. So a lot of these kids, they go online and they see pictures of some cool cars, some sport cars, and then they just start imagining about it. So I could imagine when I come and just talk about some cars that people just seen only pictures of it, or they probably even heard of it, or not even heard of it. That's just like bringing him in line with me. It's like, oh my God, he's one of us. He's speaking Farsi, and he just goes like detail talking about this.
I see. So the freedom to dream, interesting. There's actually a cultural context to that. You're actually speaking of Iranians when you say the freedom to dream, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
Interesting.
I think I learned about cars mostly in my late 20s and 30s because I had to study, obviously, in a different field, and it was just always something on the side. So the dudes I hanged out with, or just the people in general, because there's some girls too sometimes, they're all from here, and they're well speaking English, and so I didn't have that much of knowledge of how Iranians are and how much they love. Why? Because I was detached from that country for a while. So once I started this page, I realized, oh my God, these are just all my people speaking the same language, and they love the same passion. We are all, sharing the same passion.
So when you were growing up in Isfahan, you were not enamored of cars?
Not really. I grew up in a very, very artistic family. My dad was a professor of art history in University of Isfahan. I had to beg him to change his cars like every 20 years. I mean, I wasn't there for 20 years. And, he hasn't been driven for the past 35 years. He's 75 years old because he didn't have any passion about cars.
So you're saying you grew into a Persian stereotype. You weren't the Persian stereotype in the beginning.
I wasn't, yes.
And Vahid, what is it about automobiles that has so captured your imagination? You've described this almost like a love story, your relationship with cars.
It is actually true. I actually look at a car, it's more they have like a personality, and and for me, through all these years, I kind of creating some sort of a relationship with all the cars. I mean, the one that I own them, or even the one that just look at them or drive them, which there are so many of them. So I think everything started when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and unlike Ali, my family, they were all into cars. My dad and all my uncles, and they love cars, and they're always talking about cars. So I was around people that the car was big part of their life, and I'm from Ahvaz, Khuzestan. So, people over there, you're exposed to American culture because of the oil field and everything. Yeah, it's just heavily. So car was a big thing. And then my dad, I remember, he used to buy me all these Matchbox and Hot Wheels every time we go out, and it was just like I was collecting so many of them, and I was just spending hours looking at them, or even modify them. Just like I used to cut the roof, and I called them like a cabrio, but I didn't know what he called them cabriolet. You just called them something in Farsi. Darande means it was very, very wild. In my childhood dream, So yeah, I mean, it's everything was always a love story for me.
So Vahid, how has this created issues in your romantic life with potential partners, so that you love cars more than them?
Yes, kind of, because bunch of the time I compared them to the cars, I said, well, you look like a Porsche to me, but nah.
Yeah, that doesn't go over so well. Yeah.
No, not at all.
So Vahid, you are a petroleum engineer. Looking at, both of you guys, like looking at your page, I would think the cars I have driven, I would think that that's a full-time gig for you. I mean, how do you continue? You're still a petroleum engineer, right?
I am, yes.
How do you do that? And like, how much of your week is spent being the car guy?
Well, I had to extend my day. So instead of like a normally waking up at 8, now I'm waking up every morning at 4 a.m. so I can catch up with all the content, and then the time that I spend reviewing cars, filming them, editing, and all this stuff. So it's actually you're right. It's quite a time consuming, but I keep up with it only because I really enjoy it, and I'm kind of like addicted to it. So I'm having fun with it.
Are you addicted to it in terms of the culture of, like, do you watch like car races, Grand Prix? How much of car culture beyond what you do on your page is part of your social existence?
Well, in terms of car racing, I'm a big Formula One, like a fan. I mean, I started watching Formula One since 1991, so it's going for forever. I've been in several races. That's I actually do commentary on the Formula One for my audience because they really love somebody talk about it in Farsi, and then that's another side of my page. It's just we recently started like about a year or stuff.
So the page is really true to who you are. You're a car obsessive.
Yes, and it's exactly what it is. It's just like people around me or my friend, they don't see any difference me behind or in front of the camera. I'm who I am.
Right.
Exactly.
And Ali, you were a dentist for 10 years, then you were a venture capitalist. How much of your life is now involved in being the car guy?
As of now, I would say about 60% of it. And I'll tell you a story. I heard this thing actually from Jay Leno. When I was dating my wife about 11 years ago, and I had about 2 cars and 3 bikes back then. And I said, look, there are guys that they have 1 car and 10 girlfriends. I promise I just have only 1 wife and 10 cars. And she agreed with it. And I just even convinced her it's actually cheaper to have 10 cars and 10 girlfriends. So that worked out pretty well. I decided to kind of just like go into the semi-retirement mode that basically I have some properties that I've been blessed and I did some smart investment in real estate. So, almost like every afternoon from the time I finish my daily works and daily tasks from like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I go and stay at the garage till like probably 6 or 7 p.m. I have 2 little boys that I need to spend some time with them, obviously. Otherwise, I would spend like even longer. But that's how it is.
And how many cars do you have now?
42 vehicles as of now. So still cheaper than 42 girlfriends.
Yeah, you own 42 vehicles?
Yeah, so I started collecting them. I started buying cars and restoring them. And, it was for the purpose of just making some money as an investment. And I got attached to them. And that's the worst thing. You get attached to these things. And so I bought some classic cars. I have some newer modern cars. Every once in a while, I just switch them out to something else. So yeah,
Fucking hell. I mean, it's good that you're in Houston. There, you need the space. You need taking half of Texas to just park your. Where do you put all these cars?
So in one of my properties, I've got a warehouse that I decided to dedicate to basically just parking my cars. And you could imagine, first as a Isfahani and as a real estate guy, I want to make money of every inch of property that I own. So I just squeeze all the cars. Vahid knows, he's been there a few times, as much as possible. And lately, I just basically divided my warehouse and I just rent half of it, convincing myself that at least the other half pays for this half. So, yeah.
Yeah, and therefore put the car on top of each other.
I have to put them on top of each other.
Vahid,
yes.
What are you doing wrong? This guy's got 42 cars. You're still running around being a petroleum engineer.
Yeah, true. Well, Ali, as he said, he was blessed with his investment, but that petroleum engineering thing is another passion. I've been doing this for 22 years. I've worked in all 5 continents around the world, 17 different countries. I really love that. I really, really enjoy.
You're
that.
a true Khuzestani kid. Good for you.
Yeah.
Guys, let me get to the big question at hand now, because I want you to teach me this, and I say I come at this quite innocently as someone who grew up in the diaspora, and maybe it's because I would fit in with your artsy family, Ali. I don't know, but sure. I've never totally. Do I love my cars? Sure. I've often talked about on the program how I've had different versions of Mini Coopers, some of them fancy JCWs and stuff, but for the most part, I just like it. It's a British car. It feels at home to me. But cars have never been a big deal for me. And I've always wondered why my cousins, my Persian friends, why Persian society in general, and the joke I said in the introduction is true. I mean, my extended family, who kind of always look at me wondering why I'm kind of driving the cars I'm driving. I think my parents were their happiest when for about a week I owned a BMW, and until I decided it just wasn't me and gave it back, and they sank back into the depression of being my parents. But there was a moment where they thought, okay, he's turned into a good Persian son. So I come at this with truly wanting to know. You guys teach me, and maybe the audience as well. Why are Iranians so into cars? Let's start with that, Vahid.
Well, I mean, let's just roll back like about 120 years ago when the first ever car came into our country, and it was during the Qajar, and it was just like a big hit, and since then, car was, as you said, was the status, and in countries like ours, it was always more expensive than the first world countries like where we live right now in North America. I remember even when I was a kid, we didn't have so many varieties of the cars. It was still not available like what we can have here in the market. So it was always a precious, valuable things to own. And of course, even here is some sort of a status. People try. You park your car in your driveway and you want to show off to your neighbors. They all do. I mean, if somebody said no, that's not true. And then after more restriction in the country, and then the border closed and no cars coming in, the car just went into the different dimension. To be honest, right now in Iran, cars are more valuable than diamond here, to be honest. And it's like, as you can see, you park your car on the street and people come and take your doors. And
because it's harder to get certain cars, or yeah.
Yes, and the value of the car in Iran is insane. It's just like me and Ali sometimes talk about it. It's just like the numbers doesn't make any sense. The car that here is maybe $50,000. It's $1 million in Iran. So
Ali, I understand exactly what Vahid is saying. It certainly makes sense that why people in Iran, if you go back to say the 1950s, it's a country that's burgeoning, growing economically into the 60s, 70s, and then after the revolution, maybe cars are inaccessible. These kind of things I would understand, but how does that explain the continued interest, obsession, and linkage to status in the diaspora? I mean, how is it bled outside of Iran in our DNA? Can you explain?
Of course. To continue to what Vahid was just saying, I think there's a very practical reason for that, because the way people look into cars in Iran is just basically sort of investment. And because of, unfortunately, the inflation and not the right way of the economy has moved in the past few years in Iran, no matter what you buy, next day you can turn around and sell it, just make a profit on it. So people buy cars in order to invest their money. And to me is, if you say someone here in the States or Canada, like, hey, let's just invest in cars, unless if there's some special classic antique cars that the value might increase or not. In Iran, it's not like that. So people buy cars in order to take their money out of the bank because they think it's safer and they get a better increase in their investment, either short term. We're not talking about any long term. So that might be one reason. Second thing is just, I remember growing up in Iran and all my family telling me that hopefully one day when you're an engineer and you buy your Mercedes, we're going to find you a good, beautiful wife. And this is embedded in our brain that part of you getting just settle in life after you finish your education, either have to be a doctor or a dentist or an attorney, because there's no other, there's no other career in Persian parents' mind. Then you have to buy a nice car, and then you're ready to go buy Khasagari, and then we're going to get you a wife, or
right.
So that's trust.
And that's the order, right? You have to get the Mercedes first, yeah.
Exactly, and that has become like an image. The classes and the status amongst Iranian traditionally still play a big role. You know that. Even Iranians just like lately moved to Canada. The first thing they do, they just try to go buy something so they can impress someone. Or as you mentioned it earlier, this is status thing. So you need to show, hey, I'm doing pretty well. Even though here, we all know you could just have $1,000 in your bank and you can just go lease a car for like $500 a month and nobody cares. But this mentality continues with a bunch of Iranians who actually move out of the Iran. So they have to always show this class and the status of, hey, we can do it, able to afford this thing. And sadly, this is only between Iranians. So if you come in with a car and just like you pull up somewhere, if somebody knows that you can buy a car here with little investment, it might not be as impressive than other people that they know about it. Hey, yaru Mercedes savare, pas vazش خوبه. He's doing pretty well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So to me, it's just like this something that embedded in our culture. And we grew up thinking that one day when I have a house, when I have a Mercedes, and when I have a beautiful wife, then everything is set. I don't need to do anything else.
I want to actually, Jian, sorry, I'm jumping in.
Yeah.
I want to add this. But if you look at other countries, look at the people coming from Africa, Canada. You're accepting immigrants from around the world. So people come from Africa, the same countries that the car is valuable thing over there. Even China, because car is so expensive. The moment they land here, right away they go for buying it something expensive. It's just like I mean, many people come to me, Iranian, and said, "Hey, I'm about to land in Canada in about 3 months, 6 months, something like. What do you suggest me to buy?" And they're all like, I want to buy a BMW. I want to buy a Mercedes. I said, guys, why you want to do that? Do you know that the expense of the cars are not only the value of the car here, but this, as Ali said, this is the status. And this happening with so many other nations because they're looking back at what they couldn't have back home and they're going to have it here. And then all my Canadian friends, just like you, they don't really care about the car much, generally 90% of them. They just want something reliable and just take them from A to B. They really don't care.
I'm glad you made that point, Vahid, because we're not exclusively the only people who are interested in fancy cars, or there wouldn't be a global market for them. And even in the States, I mean, there's this tradition of the big Buick or whatever, the Cadillac, the great American cars, etc. But I wonder, in your experience, so Vahid, you're saying it breaks down on a first generation, second generation immigrant from, say, a developing part of the world. That's where you see the difference in terms of what you, in as much as you can figure out the metrics through your social media followers, etc.
That's exactly true. And I can give you a very live example. I have a son, he's 19 years old. And I mean, we are having different kind of cars on our driveway for test drive, all fancy and expensive and fast. And he shows next to nothing, interest. It's like, they're all cars, I really don't care, because he grew up here. So all is just like, look at a car as a tool. He doesn't. He's a pure example of somebody with the mind of Canadian that or normal Canadian that's just like, okay, I really don't care.
I want to say one thing too, if I may.
Go ahead.
Us Persians, we love physical beauty, and this is probably one of the reasons that most of us would go and replace our big nose with the subtler ones. You and I didn't do it, obviously. So the better your nose
Throw me
is,
in there. Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
The better your nose is, the higher your physical attractiveness, I believe. And this is just a general idea, but it could be applied to the cars too. So the better the car, or the more expensive the car, the higher of your status. So this is a physical thing that you could see it, you could feel it. And for the same reason both Vahid and I said, that's just why people love to have them. And the more expensive, the better it is.
I should just also note that, we are three dudes talking about this, but it doesn't appear to be gender exclusive either. Even, Ali, your examples about the Mercedes and then the wife, etc. Most or a lot of Persian women I know, like the Persian girls who've come from Iran in the last 10, 20 years, a lot of them still want to drive fancy cars. I mean, this crosses genders as well, right? Is that your experience?
I believe so, yes. But I think guys in general make probably a little bit deeper connection with their cars to compare with women. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are ladies that they could be as car fanatic as a guy could be. But generally speaking, I've seen a higher percentage amongst guys than ladies.
There's a Persian woman I know in Toronto. I don't want to get too specific with her in case she's listening at it. I wouldn't want to offend her, but she has a very modest job and a very modest income, and lives very modestly, like a sort of a studio apartment kind of thing, but drives a fancy Mercedes SUV. Because that, one of you guys was making the point about the image that it gives of, somebody is a success. Vahid, does it surprise you when I tell you that story about a young Persian person in Toronto?
It doesn't surprise me at all. And I have to add this. If a Persian man, and want to have a fancy car, maybe he's looking at his horsepower and drive and how it drives and the quality of the drive. But women look at the cars as a jewelry, some sort of accessories. They really don't. And I've come across so many women that are asking me, "Yeah, I want to buy a car, but I don't care about horsepower or how many gear he has or what sort of a suspension or how good is with the curve." But it does. Is it the Mercedes? Is it the Porsche? Is it the Range Rover? And that's for them is a jewelry. And this is all over the place, and it's very normal.
Okay, why? Since the name has come up a few times, why is BMW and I mean it's almost a joke, BMW? Why is BMW and Mercedes still so important to Iranians, Vahid?
This goes back through the history. Mercedes and BMW were great before revolution in Iran. Their marketing was amazing, and they were status. I mean, look at the movies from those times. Wherever show somebody from the very rich family either driving a Mercedes S-Class or a BMW, and somebody even close to the king and all, they were all driving these sort of cars or big American cars. So it's implemented in the mind of every Iranian that this is what you need to have. Like, for example, I love Audis, and Audis are very good. They're as good as the Mercedes and BMW these days. But a Persian, they don't like Audis.
No status. Yeah, I wanted to get an Audi at one point, and yeah, my Iranian friends were like, "But why not a BMW then?" Or basically, I'm curious about that because surely Iranians are smart enough to know that an Audi is a prestige car too, or it can be a it's a very fine car.
But what happened? I'm sorry, Vahid.
Sure.
The first impression of many cars in Iran has been like whether it was a good car or a bad car. I'm a big fan of Land Rover. I always had, beside every other cars I had, either have a Range Rover or a Land Rover. And everybody in Iran thinks this car is one of the worst cars being built. And I've been trying to just tell my followers, dude, first of all, some cars are not built for every people in every kind of all kind of income. So this car is coming at the price of $100,000. The person who has the money invests in it and buys it and enjoys it. And then when it comes to the troubles, he drop it and he go buy another one, right? But everyone, and even if I bring a brand new Range Rover, this Saratana, this is a cancer. Why? Because back in the days in 1970s, when some Range Rovers were coming to Iran, they were British cars, they were difficult to work with, and obviously mechanics in Iran are so practical. They have only one, no offense to anyone, a screwdriver and a hammer, and they fix the whole car for you. And of course, they couldn't figure it out. It was a very heavy car. It had a V8. So this is embedded in people's minds. Same thing about Jaguar. Every time we talk about Jaguar, blah, 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 this is so much trouble. But they've come a long way. Those people, especially for North American market, it is a huge step up for Land Rover. Even BMWs, they were not as reliable. Why? Because there's a huge competition. So because simply I had a bad experience in Range Rover in 1978, so everything else came after is garbage. And I've been having an issue just telling these followers that, look, technology is changing. These companies are sold from one hand to another one. Land Rover was sold to BMW, then they sold it to Ford, and then Land Rover Jaguar was taken over by Tata, which is an Indian company. And they've been working on their products. You cannot just look at every product through one eye and say, no, they're junk. My uncle had one in Shamal. Every time we were going there, we had problem with this damn car. So please don't talk about Range Rover anymore. I mean, this is the mentality of most of these people.
But I know that there are, first of all, for people listening right now who are screaming at their speakers, there are obviously going to be exceptions. There are Iranians, driving other kinds of cars. There are Iranian women who don't just see it as an extension of jewelry or whatever it was described a few minutes ago. But for the most part, Ali, I don't know if I can remember an Iranian, knowing an Iranian, and Toronto's got a big Iranian community now, knowing an Iranian driving a Subaru.
Right.
It's like oil and water. I can't even imagine it. And that seems absurd to me. Why shouldn't Iranians drive a Subaru, right? But this is why I'm getting you guys on here. Is this a myth or is this what I'm saying actually real?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna come talk about this, but I mean, people then come to me and they're asking advice for, hey, I want to buy a car, and even, hey, my budget is 5,000, but I'm looking at the 20 years old Mercedes. I said, why you want to do that? Why it has to be this? Oh, because it's German. It has all this bling. The thing is that they cannot look at the economy car like Subaru or something like that. In Toronto, that strip of all the Persian shops, if you go there and you can park in the spot, all you see is BMW, Mercedes,
yes.
Lexus as well.
But Vahid, does does a really souped up Toyota or like a cool vintage Pontiac have any cachet, or does it, or no? It has to always be a Lexus or a BMW or a Mercedes.
I think for Persian, it has to be the ultimate goal is to get there. Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, Porsche. It's sitting on the top, higher up, and that's what it is. They just going over there, and they want to do that, and it doesn't matter if it's old or new or something like that. And all these I mean, they love Toyota, by the way, because it's economic and it's just blah blah. But Subaru, oh no, it's just, don't even talk about it. It doesn't make any sense.
Subaru is a really good. Was a really good car. I'm not up to date on that, but I remember years ago wanting to buy one. It was like the #1 Consumer Reports car, in terms of safety and things like that.
It still is, yeah.
But but that's not. That's not what we're not interested in that. Persians. No. Ali, on this notion of whether, I'm thinking, if you're really into cars and really into status, then you would think a specialty car, something unique, something vintage would be the ultimate. But it sounds like it has to be, even if it's a specialty car, it has to be a specialty car of a certain brand.
Obviously, yes. So, like any other market, some of this classic or antique cars, if you will, recently in America, or like North America, has just gone up in values like crazy. There are other factors involved, of course. If people are in car business, somebody has this very special car, very unique, and they just like price it whatever it wants. And if next car comes to the market for sale, they're going to just look at that. It's like, so this car was sold at such and such amount, so I'm going to price my car like this. It would surprise you if I tell you that how many people have started collecting cars, not necessarily antique or classic cars lately. Why? Because of this whole Corona thing happened, and I'm sure you've heard of it. There's a shortage of certain amount of computer chips and things that they cannot finish the cars. So the price of used vehicle has gone up to sky. And especially some very unique limited edition cars that they, for example, I have this Mercedes 500E. This was a first production car. It was actually a corporation between Porsche and Mercedes. And it's just like a regular Mercedes 500, it's a class 124, chassis 124. And it was only 1,500 of that was actually imported to the United States. Believe it or not, that car has gone up about 60 to 70% in the last 2 years. So I was lucky to buy one and have one. So yeah, I mean, there are certain cars that have gone up in value. There are certain cars that are still going up. There are cars that they have a potential to go up. There are much more people reviewing cars, both in English. I'm talking about mostly, YouTube, that people go and look at this car and they start showing interest. So me sound like, if I tell you I have 42 cars, it might sound strange, but I know people that they have 10, 15, 20 cars and they're just parking in there. So thing that it was not very common in the US that you invest your money in cars is becoming more and more popular. So yeah, but unfortunately, I think us Persians, especially old school ones, they still don't believe in collecting cars, or car could be intangible for you. It could be something is important for you to invest money on it. This has kind of been exposed to many of my followers, and I've shown them and I'm talking about it, and they're like, oh, wow. And they keep telling, what they're telling me is so funny. Please don't tell us that this Mercedes is going to go up in value, because now everybody in Iran who has the same car, they're going to raise up or jack up the price of the car. But the thing is, because of YouTubers, because of people in social media that start talking and showing interest in some cars, it might have a direct or indirect impact on how valuable that car is going to be in future.
Well, you guys are YouTubers, and you guys are big on social media. Vahid, you have almost 200,000 followers just on your Instagram alone. Who is your audience?
I would say I mean, obviously the major audience are from Iran, because as Ali mentioned before, is just like the lack of presence of all the new cars over there just make it more interesting for them to us talking about the cars, driving them, and talking about Farsi. But I do know that we have followers from around the world, among all the immigrants, Persian who live in different countries, and we do have. Audience from the other Farsi-speaking countries, like Tajikistan or even Afghanistan and all this, which is good. I'm really happy that we actually could have attract them to come and talk to us, and this is a good achievement for me.
Vahid, do you find the interest or the questions asked or the level of intrigue different amongst the people you hear from who are inside Iran versus those in the diaspora, or is it generally the same?
What I really see and I like is the people who lives outside of Iran. They challenge us a lot because they, like us, they have access to all the information, and they have touched things and they've seen things. So if they come across things and they questions that are judgment, or question that, why you say that or why it is, and this is really good. Unlike that, most of the people who lives in Iran, they kind of like accept whatever we say, which I always encourage them to, no matter who is behind a show or behind a video, never accept everything as it is and go and dig a little bit more, because on the side of it you're going to find a lot of more stuff about it. So that, for me, that's the major difference. On the other hand, the people who lives outside of the Iran is just always want to advise what to buy and how to buy it. I mean, just the general question is, lease یا finance کنیم کدوم. That's a very popular question, and there's no answer to that.
Oh, really? You do you have a personal preference?
But my personal preference to everybody is lease. But since Corona hit, I kind of like the whole thing is kind of changing these days. So I'm slowly moving to go, well, if you think like you want to keep your car for next 6-7 years, try to finance and buy it, because the future is kind of like a changing. On the same time, I'm not a big fan of electric car. I mean, you know that, Jian, right? I'm in an oil field, right? But
I'm not going to get into the environmental implications of your job, but I appreciate what you're saying.
But I actually encourage everybody that this is a great time, especially in Canada, to go and buy electric car, because the government gives you lots of aids. So the incentive is really good. So this is one of the point that I always pushing people. Said, go buy yourself a new electrical car, because you get the good incentive from the government. This is the time. You will not have it in 2 years.
Ali, the same question to you. Who do you find your audience is on your successful social media sites?
I think when I look at all this, the statistics, majority of them are from Iran, and the age range is something between 12 or 14 years old all the way to 25 years old. These are the majority of the audience. That they're thirsty to learn, they're thirsty to see stuff that they cannot see in the streets of Iran. Unfortunately, like Wahid said, most of our followers from outside of Iran are just all coming to the question of, hey, I have $5,000. What do you think I should buy? And it just trips me off, because I'm like, dude, I'm willing to help, but how do I know where do you live? First off, what type of car do you need? Right. Do you need an SUV? Do you need a 2-door and $5,000 Canadian or US? So, we've just been working on this thing. And one thing I like to say, I'm a little bit different than Vahid in just like when responding to my followers. I use a very, very informal language. Vahid knows. I do review on the cars and I start singing in the middle of it. And people are like, hey, please just like tell us when you're going to sing so we can just, lower the volume so my wife doesn't wake up and stuff. So they feel very comfortable approaching me. But I kind of learned that I could teach them things like, hey, look, let's just like try to look at things from a different perspective. Challenge yourself. Learn about these things. You have no idea, thanks to Roqe and so many medias that you guys are running, I've started showing the books that I'm reading every week to my audience. So it's not all about cars. And many of these people are very grateful. It's like, Thank you, Ali June. Let us know. And so, look, guys, I read this book and I think it's very good, and it has nothing to do with the cars. So I'm trying to just kind of just like teach them, different ways of looking at the stuff. Hey, there's Google in there, there's internet, and when you try all of this thing and you couldn't find your answer, then you can come to Ali, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Some of them, they started just raising their guards, like, "Who do you think you are? You're not answering." I'm like, "No, dude, I just want you to learn. I just want you to try it on your own." Make a mistake, because nobody taught me. All I know is by reading and doing practical works on cars. And so it's kind of like working out, and I'm telling everybody, just try to get out of this comfort zone. Maybe the fact that us Iranian, we all just like to buy the same thing. If one person buy the Mercedes, he bought the Mercedes and he was good, and every other Iranian behind him is going to buy that car. Maybe you could try different things. Just have the courage to step out of it and say, no, you know what? I want to try a different. I'm just talking about cars, but it could apply to anything else, to any phenomenon. So I'm working with this young audience, and I think a lot of them are very flexible, and they're actually very grateful that, hey, thank you so much. Beside cars, we learned that this thing is good. I love watch. I'm collecting watches, and sometimes I put live about watches, and some people are really like it. So you just need to know what this audience wants to know, but at the same time, just show them like, there's a way to get in there. There's a way to learn about this thing. So try it on your own, and if you couldn't find it, just come to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.
For me, it's all about cars. 95% about cars. I really don't go any other field. Even people are asking so many questions, but I shut it down from the beginning. I said, well, this is only about cars here, so I don't want to get in somewhere else. But and you realize one of the reasons me and Ali Baby not working is because he's singing. Jian.
Traditional Persian music.
Yeah, traditional Persian music.
And you just couldn't handle that anymore. What's wrong
Not
with
anymore.
What's wrong with our Sonati music, Vahid? What do you got a problem with that?
It doesn't really goes with the cars, and at least in my mind.
Vahid, you said something interesting a moment ago that actually was a good segue into something that I wanted to ask you guys about, which is that I wanted to ask you about detractors, and I was thinking about the fact that, I mean, Iranians, we've joked about it a lot on the show, and we've actually talked about it in a non-joking way too, that there can sometimes be an attitude that "Ma ke midunim," we know everything, we know the answer, and particularly I'm thinking around cars. It makes sense that you've started these social media sites and that they've become astronomically successful, but I would also think it's got to be difficult navigating through a community of people who are going to say, well, what are your qualifications? What do you know? I mean, or question what you say or do or are interested in. Let me hear from both of you on that. First, you, Vahid.
Oh, I mean, this is obvious. It's just like we've been questioned all the time. What I see, the trend that I see is people who are a regular audience of my page, that they're always coming back. They know me very well. They know, some of them, they know me because when I started everything back in 2012 in the Facebook, and the whole idea was like, hey, I'm driving different cars, so shouldn't I share the story of these cars with other people? So start writing about them, and all those articles were so popular. They end up being in the Majale Machine, which I loved it since I was a kid, blah blah. And then so people some of my audience are coming from that time, so they're come in peace with me. They agreed that I'm reading a lot about cars and driving them, and I have friends that they're into the management or production and blah blah blah. But then the newcomers are the one that it just come right away. They come so hot at us. It's like who do you think you are? It's just like talking about this, and what do you know about cars? And you must likely say, "Peradi to furukhti ina sawar shadi." تا دیروز پیکان داشتی حالا اومدی stuff like this.
Ali?
I have a different take on this. I remember watching one of your interviews with Justin Trudeau back in 2014.
Yes.
And he mentioned something about Canadians, some of them, that they think that if somebody get out of Canada and made it up there, you give them more value and more thumbs up that to compare with someone. I don't remember exact words that Mr. Trudeau used, but same thing about
we
Iranians.
sometimes have to leave the country and become successful somewhere else to be validated in Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the same fact applies for many of us Iranians. So if somebody get out of Iran and, for example, like he just made it to the point that he could have some cars, can afford to have a good style of living. So most of this kid's looking at, wow, so he really knows what he's talking about. And I've just heard it. Of course, there's a small percentage of people, no matter what you do, they're never happy. They send you all kind of words that, you just have to block him. But a lot of these people, because of the fact that we're broadcasting these videos and this social media channels from outside of Iran, a lot of them give it a little bit of more value and like, oh wow, so this guy knows what he's talking about. Some of them are asking, hey, can you talk in English? Can you please just say some words in English so we can learn? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can, but let's just learn. So they think because we're here at the source of basically everything of car wise around us, so we know what we're talking about, and I consider that as a good point. But at the same time, I turn around and tell them, look, I'm somebody like you. I just had an opportunity to come here and I studied here. It doesn't mean I know more than that. I transfer what I know. It could be wrong, it could be right, but yeah, that's how I look at it.
What is the most frustrating thing about Persian attitudes and cars? What is the most frustrating thing, Ali?
I think mostly people that they have experience on without having, depth and knowledge of talking about someone. That tricks me off. I don't like to talk or hear stuff from people that because they're good drivers or they know how to drive in Iran's street, they could talk about everything about cars. And we always distinguish between like there's so many branches of car enthusiasts. Somebody could be a driver, but not necessarily a good mechanic. Someone's a good mechanic, but not necessarily a good driver. Somebody knows how to talk about cars with passion, which is Vahid is the king of it. Sultan, he talks about the ugliest car if he wants to make it look good, and you will believe it. It's like, oh my god. But does it mean that Vahid? I don't even know if Vahid can change the oil of his car. I'm sorry, Vahid. I'm not trying to be rude here, but he's good at what he does, and I've been telling these people, look, yeah, everybody is good at something.
I only find the oil. I don't change it.
That's right.
So they're different. They're different type of people, but those who just come and pretend that they know about everything, and in reality, you don't know they know anything. That's just the most annoying thing to me. I like people. If you're talking about something, you have to base it of some fact that you're talking about, or you need to at least have an experience to talk about it. Just don't come and tell me, yeah, this is like this because I heard it from someone else.
And you, Vahid, same question?
For me is the fact that none of the Iranian buy car that as a thing that they needed. They just buy much more than they needed. Let me just open it like this. So when they want to have a car, but they never talk about the size that they need. They never think about that how many mileage they're gonna have it. So when it comes to that, they just want to buy as expensive as it possible that they have, like they can afford, and this is so wrong. And I came across so many people that said, "Don't do that." Even close friends of mine said, "Don't do that. You're going to regret." No. This is really appealing. I like it. My wife likes it. My kids love it and all this stuff. They buy it in 3 months. And, oh my God, what a mistake I made. This is expensive. That is so expensive. I said, I told you don't need that. But he said, but us Persian, we go to the shop and the guy said, "Hey, I want to have a carpet." And the guy said, "What is your budget?" He said, "No, the budget is not important. پولش اصلا مهم نیست." It's just like, no, it is important. It's just like you gotta give me the window so I can guide you. So I sometimes say, guys, I'm sorry, I cannot really guide you if you don't tell me what you want, because I have to narrow down among like hundreds. This is really frustrating because I really like to help people to make a right purchase or right choice. But this is quite frustrating. But back to the thing that Ali said about, I'm lucky to have a friend, and a partner Mohammed is, we call him Mama China, and so we have a garage in Montreal, and then he take care of all my cars, all the mechanical parts, so I never get dirty. he is awesome. His Otomo is his garage is great.
What do you find that on your social media sites, on your Instagram channels, on your YouTube channels, what do you find gets the most reaction? Like Ali, I referenced the there was one episode you have, or one post you had, which is just you driving to check out what looks like some kind of Mercedes SUV that's an olive color, and it has like 260,000 views.
Oh yeah,
and I don't even. I mean, no offense, but I don't even know why. I mean, what it's sort of interesting, but can you understand why some of these posts get the kind of reaction they do?
I'm going to tell you exactly why. So I mentioned at the beginning that it's very hard to convince Persian audience, right? And it's very hard to expose them to new materials, including new cars or the vehicles that they have no knowledge of. So the reason you see those shows, like some of those videos, they just like, I don't know, like a few $100,000 view, is because I had ordered a G-Wagon Mercedes. And I had talked about it before, that usually you have to put money down. You have to wait 2 years because of how Mercedes wants to keep this car very exclusive. So you have to wait 2 years after you put your deposit to get the car. So first, people kind of knew that this car is coming. And second is, everybody loves G-Wagon. Do you know why? No. Because the Shah of Iran is the one who ordered this vehicle the very first time to Mercedes back in 70s. He wanted to order a vehicle which is an SUV, could be used in the military. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. He even brought the Mercedes and put him in contact with, I think it's the company in Austria that making them. So they basically, he made that order for them to have an SUV Mercedes. So all Persians, no matter what, they think any G-Wagon that you see in the market, Shah of Iran somehow has been behind it. Even the newer models, which, it's been changed so much. So yeah, that was one of the reasons. A G-Wagon coming, and I had talked about it, and people was like, hey, my G-Wagon is here. And I had no preparation for that video. I didn't practice anything. I just turned on my camera. Yeah. I did it. But guess what? I go and I find a very, very, very unique car. And I spent hours filming it, talk about it. I have to prepare myself, read about it, and it doesn't even get 1/10 of that attention that something like the G-Wagon video got. Right. And it's just so hard to guess that how are they gonna react first of all, and what material they're gonna like the most. That he knows.
This is so true. Yes, I agree with Ali.
We spent hours working on, putting different cameras in the car, go and find a nice scenery in Texas heat. Hours talking about it, editing the video, few weeks, put it up, and it's not important. Okay, yeah, it's nice. Or some of them, they even say bad stuff about the car. I'm like, dude, at least learn something from it. But if Vahid comes and talks some junk about some cars that people have some knowledge of it from the past, oh my God, thank you so much for bringing this memory to us. My dad used to have this car.
Vahid, is that true? Is that what gets the most?
It is absolutely true, Jian. Like, a couple of months ago, I have a friend here that he has this unique, showroom. It's a private showroom, and it has all these special order, custom made, fancy cars up to $1 million. And I made this about half an hour reports from there, and I thought this is going to be huge because each one of these cars are like a piece of a jewelry. And that was one of the worst videos because no one actually connected those cars. Said, we don't care about the Ferrari that is $900,000, or we don't care about this one signed by that guy. I said, come on, guys. And then I did a piece on a Porsche Panamera 2011, very old one. And this was a huge success. So I'm kind of like get confused sometimes. I said, what am I doing here? What should I do? But I guess at the end of the day, at least for me, if I cannot connect to the car that I'm talking about, is this going to be a really bad video. So I really need to have some sort of feeling. As I said at the beginning of the interview, I had some relation with the car.
You and your intimate relations with the cars. I have to say, I have to express my disappointment in both of you that we have basically been talking for an hour or so, and neither of you have mentioned the greatest Persian car of all time, which of course is the Jian.
I wasn't sure how you're going to take it, honestly. I mean, that's the first thing everybody knows when they hear your name. So,
a shit French car that was. Now, I've never actually seen one in person. Have either of you ever seen one or owned one?
I've seen one. I've actually sat in one. I drove one, and it's not. It's actually well known and quite popular these days in Canada and in Europe.
In Canada, there's Jians in Canada.
We do have some Jian here. I mean, one of them is you, of course.
Yeah. When people ask me, depending on how I'm feeling, when they go, "Where's the name Jian come from?" I either say "Shida Jian de Guerre," or I go,
yes.
"Yeah, a crap car from the '60s." You know, Ali, any thoughts on the Jian?
This is one of the most popular economical car back in, I think, like early 70s when Citroën came with this product. And Vahid, just to respect what you say, there's no Jian outside of Iran. They call the Jian in Iran. So this is just like the C2V one that they're actually the older version of it. They're going up in value. Some of these auctions that sometimes I attend, that they have one or two and they're going for like $20,000-$30,000. But there was a different type of it. So it was built in Iran, and they call it Jian, and it was just one of the most economical vehicle. It had like a 2-cylinder engine. I think it had like a 3-speed gearbox. And it was a family car. I remember families that they drove from Isfahan to Mashhad with like 7 people inside the Jian, and the poor car was just struggling on the road to get in there. So yeah, it was just one of those like affordable vehicles.
Yes, the Jian was a Persian name that they put in. Kind of like they modify it. But the one that we have here is, Ali is right. The one is with the headlamps sitting on the fender.
It looks a bit like an old Lada to me from the pictures. You know, like a Soviet kind of basic box car. But of course, I have an affection for it, even though I've never seen one in person. Guys, it is such a pleasure to get to talk to both of you and get your insights. A final question to each of you. First of all, Vahid, I understand that you're involved in setting up a kind of a Top Gear, which of course is a massively successful show out of England, but it's sort of been replicated and it's got international appeal. Doing a kind of a Top Gear for Persians. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's no secret that I really love Jeremy Clarkson and whatever he did all these years. I've watched whatever he made and read all his books. So all these years, my ultimate goal was to create a show that is kind of like, a car show. Obviously, Top Gear is the pinnacle of that, but we're trying to do something. So we do have 3 hosts, and it's kind of like a same style, reviewing cars and talk about cars and doing some challenges. So we already did the pilots, and then we're actually shooting next week the episode 3 and 4. So hopefully the first season with 12 episodes will be aired soon.
And do we know where it's going to air, or will we find it on YouTube, or where do we get to see it?
It's not going to be YouTube. It's going to be on satellite TV, but I'm just going to keep that quiet for now.
All right. We'll await the big announcement for where we can see. Does it have a name yet?
Yes, it does have a name, and then we use exhaust or exhaust. So exhaust is something that I really like. Yeah, and it's one of my things that I say. It's like a egzoz adam khube chaqad bashe. It's just like okay. One of my friend, which is the producer, Pedram, he's decided to call it exhaust or exhaust. So it's the same Persian English name. It's perfect name. We all love it.
I can't wait to see it. And Ali, before we let you go, so I guess I'm curious. I mean, you've been very successful. You were very modest earlier, saying you got lucky or whatever. I mean, you're in your 40s, and it sounds like you've created the conditions where you can do what you want with your life, and that involves collecting a tremendous number of cars. Where do you want to take all of this, and how many cars will be enough?
God knows. I don't know. I'm to the point that if I have a bigger space, probably I'm going to continue buying more cars. But I know myself too. So for a very long time, like maybe my early 20s, I was into motorcycle and bikes, and I just got tired of it, and I switched to cars. So it's hard for me to foresee what's going to happen. I have two young kids, that both boys growing up, whether I'm going to just like inherit all the scars to them or not. Maybe I get tired of it. It's a very time consuming thing to do, and it's very expensive. You'll be surprised if I tell you that even the cars, when they're sitting, they cost sometimes more than when you drive in them, because some of the cars, they need maintenance, they need, parts need to be changed, and they get older. So I have no idea. One difference between me and Vahid is I am probably from the generation, or we both are, or grew up in 70s and 80s. And I call it the last freedom of speech group, because we just tell whatever it comes to our mind. But Vahid has better control on the way he presents himself. I am much more upfront, and I just like tell the truth. And sometimes it costs me so much. So I don't see myself ever getting to any kind of TV shows, because I can't be myself anymore, if you know what I'm saying. So, unfortunately,
you're talking about the classical singing, aren't you?
Pretty much. Well, yeah, that too. I gotta say something, and it's my last thing, bro. I heard you singing this song. I think it was in 2006 and 2007. By the way, you're a great musician. You're so talented.
Thank you.
And none of your guests ever mentioned this thing, but
they don't know. I don't think they know. I was.
You are a beautiful person in and out, and you're so talented in many ways. And I'm just not saying that because you did this interview with me, but I think the beautiful voice of you, and I've seen you singing. It was the song that I fell in love. If I'm not mistaken, it was just when I was 4, I thought I was a girl, something like that. I was oh my God, this is. I don't know if you composed it yourself.
Yeah, I did. It was a song called "Lousy Boy." Yeah,
"Lousy Boy." Yeah, and I'm not sure if it ever came out or not, but we need this planet needs people like you being public, making our lives better, teaching us how to be different, teaching us how we could be a different, society, and bringing all these people that are just like lately I've been talking about knowing Iranians that nobody knows about it. And I start putting stories of people, and you guys are doing a great job. Good luck and keep it up.
Thank you so much for all that. And we really are, the mission is a real one, to try and help to form the connective tissue of Iranians in the diaspora. We do. It was a hunch that I had, and it's been so gratifying that to see it realized as we build this show and this network, that that in fact we all have we feel something, a kinship. We feel a connection with each other, regardless of geography or age or gender or there's the Persians in the diaspora in particular. We really feel this sense of each other, and it's borne out today. With you guys, I know neither of you very well, but you both feel like cousins of mine to me.
Thank you.
And I certainly know, after all that you've just said, Ali, which one of you I prefer, because you've been so kind to me. I don't know about this Vahid, frankly, but. But thank you, Ali. Thank you, Ali, because good taste in music and.
Well, I prepared something for closing too.
That was with no preparation. I've been following Jian since like late 90s. I remember your first interview with Harrison Ford, and later on you were talking about it, that it wasn't one of the best.
It was one of the worst. Yeah, absolutely. 2003.
Well, he's a fellow countryman. So in my car, I'm always listening to your show, and it was just like, because I'm not listening to the music or singing, I'm actually listening to something more important. So I was a big fan of your shows, and then I started watching everything in the YouTube, and I have a very good friend. His name is Ali too, and we're always talking about you. I said, "Oh, how amazing he is," and all this stuff.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Enough already. But I appreciate it.
He's going to put us on air, man. It's enough.
No, but when it comes to this interview, it was like it's some sort of a personal achievement for me. I'm very happy that I had a chance to talk to you, in person, and it is really great for me. I'm super happy with this. So thank you very much for giving.
Hey guys, thank you both. I really did learn a lot, and I can't wait to go pour through the comments of people who think that they who will have things to say about your opinions about cars, and who I'm sure are huge fans of yours as well. I'll keep pumping your sites because I think what you're doing, both of you, is really engaging stuff, and I'm so glad to have you both on the program. In Montreal, Vahid, merci. خیلی خوشحال شدم. See you again. I hope see you soon in person, in fact, in Canada.
Yes, منم همینطور خیلی خوشحال شدم جیان جان.
And Ali in Houston, merci à شما, and thank you so much for making the time, عزیزم.
Thank you, brother. Respect to you.
All right. Vahid Amiri Moghaddam, an engineer, writer, and founder behind the popular Instagram and YouTube channel Cars I Have Driven. We reached him in Montreal, Canada today. And Ali Bekhradi, the former dentist, investor, and the man behind the popular YouTube and Instagram channel Garage Bekhradi. We reached him, Ali, in Houston, USA today. Right, microphone's back on for Groovy Shaya, Captain Reza, and the fabulous Keon. How about the car guys?
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was really sweet. They've taken their childhood obsession and made a life out of it. Really,
I just found out, like right before our show, that they know each other.
That's so crazy.
I thought that they were. I mean, one of them's in Houston, and one of them's in Montreal. I guess it makes sense that popular Instagram, YouTube guys who talk about cars and who are Persian would know each other, right? But
42 cars? That's crazy. I guess if you look at it as an investment, it kind of makes sense. But I just never thought of cars as investments.
That was very interesting. That was one of the things that I guess it was Vahid who said that was one of the original precipitants for cars becoming such a powerful and popular presence in Iran, was that they was seen as an investment. This is somewhere you're parking your money, if you will.
And this is a depreciable asset, so it just
strange.
I can't wrap my head around that.
Not in Iran necessarily, because of the sanction and stuff. So there's not a lot of import cars being like in the country, and that's why whatever there is and whatever is being imported into the country is very minimal. And so the value is supply and demand. The value is constantly rising, and because the parts and everything is bought by dollar essentially, and the Iranian currency of rial is constantly dropping, that's why the value of the car is constantly going up. So in Iran, people looking at it as an investment. But also here, like in North America, if you have a classic car that you restore, the value it goes after a certain, like there is a
cap.
There is not a cap, but there is a, like for example, if you got a car that is like from like 2000 and is beat up, it's not going to worth that much. But if you got a car from 1975 and you restored it, yes, the value of it is probably more than what it was originally.
I love the passion of these guys. Like I said it in the interview, but I love how much they love cars. It's so fun. They're just so into it, and it makes sense that they have these followings of people can sense how genuine, authentic they are about their appreciation for automobiles, and obviously they know their stuff. I mean, you can hear that they know the stuff, and they know their community. I mean, they had the stats ready just based on their own interactions. Right?
And they're genuinely interested in it. Like I was going through Vahid's Instagram actually, and I saw him like going to Houston. He was hanging out with Ali, and then his older videos and stuff. So it was interesting that they knew each other, and we didn't know, and booked him on the show. But one thing
I already said that.
Did you? Good.
Does he listen when
I don't think so.
we talk, and then he starts talking and says the same thing?
I was gonna add to it by saying that I also saw a video. Jian, I'm gonna make an official complaint to the mom.
The Ghomeshi family.
I know. I gotta send the letter.
Why are you always so not very nice to Reza?
Poor guy. He just said the same thing that you did.
Because he drives a Mercedes, Mom.
That's why.
I don't. That's why.
Then go ahead. Make fun of him more.
Just because you drive Mr. Bean's car, Jian, it doesn't mean that you're listening. But I was gonna say before, I didn't have, like, I wasn't really passionate about cars or anything until I made my first series TV show. It's called Petrol. A web version of it is available online on YouTube. See what I did, Jian? There, I plugged in my show.
Everyone saw what you just did.
Yeah. Nice. It's called Petrol, guys.
People pay for that kind of sponsorship on this show, buddy.
Hey, I gotta get paid, baby. I gotta get paid somehow. So
there's a Mercedes he needs to fund.
But during making that show, and my producing partner is really into cars, I got to know a lot of people in the car community, and the camaraderie and the obsession with cars was just mind-blowing to me. So having this guys on, it brought back a lot of interesting memories, and yeah, I loved it.
Very curious how you felt about it, Shaya, given that you're self-described as a non-car guy.
I really love the vibe of interview and the general idea about this Iranian and cars. I definitely feel it, and as Kian said at the beginning of the show, the concept of door that's called that, you know, they drive their cars and go to like partying with their cars. I mean, it shows that how we are obsessed to cars. One more thing.
When we talk about something like that and say Tehran, would that be true in Mashhad and Shiraz as well?
For sure, it be true, but it's not. I don't know. I know about Tehran.
And there's people listening right there, right now in those places. Tell us. Tell us. Curious to hear about the car culture and wherever you're listening to us from in Iran right now.
Where do you go door?
Yeah, door.
Yes, and and it's interesting that he
a little door with my Thai salad. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
For me, it was interesting that Ali mentioned your interview with Justin Trudeau, and I talked to you a few days ago about. I watched that interview too, and it was interesting.
Thank you. And the fabulous Kian, what were your thoughts listening back to that?
Didn't I already share my thoughts? Speaking of listening, Jian.
Speaking of listening to this show.
Are you kidding me?
No, you didn't share your thoughts.
You asked me
what did
first.
you say?
I said how cool that they took their childhood passion and
I don't remember.
built a
I don't remember.
Yeah.
So good.
I was also gonna say
today you did that. You said that on this show.
Literally as soon as the interview was over. Wow, Reza, did you see this?
You see, what goes around comes around. Karma, baby.
I really don't remember. Reza, what did you think?
Okay, he's losing it. Guys, this is the end of the show.
Someone get
Thanks
this man
to
some coffee.
Thank you. Did you have something more to say?
I was just going to say, even on Anthony Bourdain's show, when he went to Iran, if you remember at the end of the episode, he went to this area of Tehran where all the young kids were driving their cars and eating pizza. And it's just a lifestyle built around cars. Isn't that sweet?
You know, there's sometimes things we talk about in Iran, and I always think that it's like 40, 50 years behind. There was that culture was like, that's like 1950s America. You know, people hanging out in their cars, the T-Bird, going to the malt shop. And,
even now, like it's like Woodbridge, like at the strip malls and stuff.
That's
people
true.
Come and car meets and hangouts. And
Woodbridge
stuff,
is a place in Ontario.
That's right. Oh, sorry.
Canada,
Woodbridge is a little city outskirts of Toronto.
This is a global show. It's not just in.
Not everybody's listening in your neighborhood.
Can you ride motorbike, Jian?
Can you?
I don't think so. I mean, I've ridden scooters a lot, but they're a small version of a motorbike, so I don't know.
Scooters like you stand on it? And
No.
Like the Europe.
It's like a Vespa, like that. Yeah.
Motor Gazi.
You look like you would fit on a motorcycle with your leather jacket and sunglasses.
Thank you.
He looks like he can be a cool guy, but
it'll fit your brand.
Vespa. Drives a Mini Cooper.
Why do you ask, Shaya?
Out of curiosity.
Okay. Will there be any more questions before we move on with the show? Thank you to Arash Behzadi for helping make today's edition of Roqe possible. Arash has an entrepreneur business side. He built a business from scratch that is very successful in Canada in the quality control and healthcare industries. Has a team that he's built in Canada, US, Dubai, and sells worldwide. He's also a pioneer in piano yoga, plays intuitive piano. improvisation, energy during yoga classes and festivals around the world, in Bali, in Dubai, in Canada, in Turkey, Italy. Gives back to his community, including the Iranian community, for all the love and support he's received. So he gives back by performing in a lot of charity events and supporting arts groups and events in the Iranian community, including this program. He says he's proud to be Iranian born, but considers himself a global citizen. Check out Arash Behzadi at Arash Piano on Spotify and on Instagram. And a shout out to Arash, another Arash, and Anita Fazalipur, who are the founders of MyTerms.ca. MyTerms.ca, a successful mortgage company in Canada. They believe in educating their clients to understand every aspect of the financing being obtained, and they see each transaction through from the beginning to the end to make sure that they are closed with ease. If you're looking for a mortgage in the Greater Ontario region, in Toronto, in the GTA, go to myterms.ca. They are among the best, and both Arash and Anita make it a priority to give back to the Persian community as well. Big thanks to them and myterms.ca. It's Thursday. You guys know what that means? She's a dear friend, a diaspora blend, a tennis-playing sensation, a bicultural relation, lovable, smart, occasionally funny, and on a journey to discover what we actually discovered. Here we go, Bachaha. It's all Persian to us with Kian Nademi. Start this off with a headache after Reza's.
He's built a brand around this.
He thinks the funny thing is he somehow thinks that people want to hear that. Keeps doing it, you know.
Yeah, I think he's enjoying his time more than.
And he used to do it just for this, and then he does it with the letters as well.
Any opportunity he gets. He walks in the office. He's probably so quiet at parties, doesn't say a word.
That's true. I'm very quiet.
It's all Persian to us. Kian June, what do you have for us on this Thursday?
All right. So a few weeks ago, I talked about the invention of the qannat and how they sourced water into ancient Persian cities and quite literally gave life to the ancient Persian Empire. Well, water is great and all, and God knows it would be good for the current people of Khuzestan, all of Iran for that matter, not to have to worry about water supply and distribution.
Yes.
But what about the most basic human right, the right to breathe fresh air?
Oh.
How did ancient Persians cool off after a hot summer day in the middle of the desert? In fact, Iran.
Yakhchal.
Well, I mean, that's where they stored their food. They can't
They
store
didn't
their
go in
they
the
can't
yakhchal.
store their sweaty bodies in there.
But
Like,
I thought the yakhchal was like an igloo, like it was like a big building.
That's true. They could have.
They couldn't just stand in
well,
there.
it's a hygiene matter, I would imagine. You know, they don't want sweaty people all over their fresh meat. It's quite disgusting, actually. In fact, Iran's Lut Desert, or Dashte Lut, how do you say that? Dashte Lut holds the record for the hottest land surface temperature in the world, reaching up to 80 degrees Celsius. That's 177 Fahrenheit. Did you guys know that? Isn't that interesting? The hottest land surface.
In the Dashte Lut?
Dashte Lut, yeah. Fun fact for you there, Jian.
Thank you.
So now it's true no one actually lives or could ever have lived in the Lut Desert. It's extreme heat and
You mean the Dashte Lut?
The Dashte Lut, yeah, that's right.
That's like a food.
Yeah, in fact, plants and animals can't even live there, let alone humans. But a few hundred kilometers away, like say in the province of Yazd, the temperatures could also be quite unforgiving. Yet people have been living and thriving there for thousands of years. How could this be? C'est pas possible. Just imagine yourself in 40-degree weather without air conditioning. I imagine I turn into something like the Hulk and just want to kill everybody, but you know.
Oh.
Well, imagine they did when they invented a solution to the extreme heat in the form of a bodgir, or a wind catcher. Ancient air conditioning.
A bodgir.
Yes, a bodgir. Invented around 4000 BC.
The bodgir doesn't work in the Dashte Lut?
Well, I mean, there's no water there, right? So it's kind of hard.
You need water for the bodgir?
Like you can create a bodgir, but what's the, you have to travel thousands of kilometers away just to get access to water. And it's hard to build a civilization there. Like imagine the Sahara Desert. Does it make sense to live there?
No.
Exactly.
So wait, the bodgir
just love saying it.
Yeah, no, I want to know.
Love
You know what bod gear means? Literally, like wind catcher. Bod.
Bod. Yeah.
There you go. I'm teaching you Farsi.
Gear. Bod gear me kone.
Not
Bod gear. Come on.
There you go. He's learning, guys. That's it, little Jian.
I got some bod gear to wear to the gym.
All right. So invented around 4000 BC, these ancient air conditioning structures quite literally blew a breath of life into Persia. Ooh. It was a matter of life and death in those unforgiving hot summer months. After all, necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. So this ancient cooling system consisted of a tall chimney-like structure rising up from the corner of a structure with tiny vertical openings.
The structure rises from the structure?
Like the house, let's say. It's a structure from the structure. How else do you say structure? Building.
Yeah,
building,
maybe another word.
Okay, building.
So the tall structure comes out from a structure.
All right, imagine like
is the tall part the bod gear?
Yeah, there you go. Right. And so there's tiny vertical openings on several sides of it at the top. Mm-hmm. So it's from these openings that the wind enters and passes downwards to refresh the interior of the house. Oh. And with the pressure difference inside the column, the hot airflow naturally goes up while the cold air goes down. And the space inside the column
is like basically opening some windows?
If it's hot, if you're living in a hot climate and you open the windows, you just have hot air.
Right.
So
but if you have a bod gear, you open the windows up top and
exactly.
the air comes down.
Exactly. And they actually would position it depending on, like I know in Yazd, it's surrounded by mountains. So there's no sand entering through. But in some cities where they didn't have the protection of a mountain, to prevent sand coming into the openings, they would position it a certain way where the wind wouldn't blow sand into the structures. Exactly. And so the space inside the column is divided by ranges of bricks, which is another way to accelerate the movement of airflow. Quite genius, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And in most cases, a water pool was usually located right under the columns, creating a natural evaporation, which also cools down the temperature of the room by around 10 degrees. There you go, survival. It even worked in the absence of a breeze, like I mentioned, creating a passive ventilation inside the buildings. So this genius invention even doubled up to cool lower level storage units or shabistans, where food could be kept during the hot summer months in the absence of a yakhchal or a fridge. Not everybody could afford a yakhchal. There you go.
They for their shabistan.
There you go, the shabistan. I'm teaching you Persian today.
Yeah. So the most important thing I take...
Making a mockery.
The takeaway for me is don't build your bod gear near the dash de loot. That could be
is that the takeaway?
That's my takeaway so far. Stay clear of the dash de loot because
really hot.
Even with the bod gear, you're not going to have a lot of
sand blowing in.
That's
there.
right.
There you go. So pair it up with a qannat or an underground water channel cooling from beneath, and you are living the luxury life, my friend. Well, luxury life in ancient times, Right. So bod gears or wind catchers can actually still be found in Iran today, particularly in the cities close to central deserts like the Dasht-e-Lut and all along the Persian Gulf. Right. Yazd, the city of Yazd, holds the title for the most bod gears, which is why it's known as the city of wind catchers. Yeah. It's also in
city of bod gears.
There you go. Yeah. It's also in Yazd, where the tallest wind catcher or bod gear in the world stands at 34 meters in the UNESCO-listed garden of, does anyone know? Doladabad. I thought Shaya would know this for some reason.
I think Shaya is learning alongside of us.
We ascribe a lot of things to Shaya.
And since Persian architecture largely influenced its neighboring countries, wind catchers or bod gears can be found throughout the Middle East, North Africa, and all the way up to India. Wow. Like with most other ancient Persian inventions, bod gears caught on after the Arab conquest in the 7th century, which helped pass along the creative genius invention to the rest of the world. Mm. And so, as we sit here in our comfortable, air-conditioned homes, let us remember our ancestors, who had to endure and suffer through hot summer months until they cracked the science of air. They harnessed the wind into their homes and took a deep breath into the lungs of the motherland, ancient Persia. And as you know, it's all Persian to us. Did anybody know this about the bod gear?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You did know that?
Yeah.
What?
That
You
we
did or you
invented
didn't
bod
know
gear?
that? Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
did you know that this such an invention existed?
Yeah, we studied it when I went to elementary school. They teach you.
Did you
this
retain anything? Do you remember anything?
stuff. Everything that you said, basically, how it was
Sure.
created, and it was called
Yeah,
bod gear.
Keon.
Has
We already
anyone-
knew.
Has anyone? I've been to Yaz when I was little, but I don't remember it. Do any of you guys remember what it like? Because apparently they're quite,
I remember it looked like a big chimney at
Right.
the top of like houses and
And
stuff.
so
Steeple.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
UNESCO preserved the city of Yaz, and there's this push to try to preserve all of them because it's like an ancient marvel.
That's
so
amazing.
I know they're turning a lot of them into hotels, but of course there's some issues with funding and whatnot. But I'm like, if I ever get the chance to go back to Iran, I definitely want to go there. Has anyone been to the Dasht Lut, for that matter?
I haven't.
Actually, it's a very common site for going there and stay for intent
And stay. Oh wow,
Yeah.
really?
way.
Have
Oh,
you
yeah.
have you been there?
yes.
And you've stayed there overnight?
Oh yes.
Oh wow, you didn't die of heat?
No.
Really?
But did you have a bod gear? Like a portable bod gear? You set up above the tent?
Isn't that genius though?
It is genius.
like,
I mean, these
really.
are all very. I love things like this. I
Yeah,
love
and they
that
all
the
tie together.
Antecedents to what would later become cooling
Right, the
systems. and air
Padna,
conditioning.
Yakhchal, and Bod gears, they could all like tie them all together and create the most magnificent cooling system.
Yeah.
I mean, they always seem so simple. It's like when I say, so they invented opening the windows, but if no one had done that before,
Right.
that's
Open a window, you mean?
yeah, they were like.
Oh, look at that air. Yeah. But
No. I understand the bod gear is not just a
Right.
window. It's like a.
and so
it's
so
a-
it had to be tall enough where the sand doesn't come from the
Yes.
ground, right? So
but it gears the bod.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gets the wind.
bod.
Yeah. I need to gear me some bod.
حالا خودت باد نده.
All right. Thank you, Keon. Another brilliant edition of It's All Persian to Us. Thank you, Captain Reza. Thank you, Groovy Shaya. Catch us Monday with a new episode, a Rook-themed episode, The Champions. Farinaz Alari, Nassim Varaste, who's gone to Tokyo for the Olympics with the Canadian national karate team, and Afsoon Johnston, the wrestler. That's all coming up on Monday. This is Full Time for Rook for today. Remember, for all things Rook, you can head to our website, rookmedia.com, where you can become a patron of this program. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week. The fabulous Keon, Super Patty Saw, Ponta the artist, producer Susan, Thoughtful Nagin, Savvy Roham, sponsorship Sean, Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, and Aghay Mehdad. Thank you to all of you out there who are supporting us and sharing our content. Tell people about it and subscribe on any or all of our platforms. If you've not done so already, it is free to subscribe on any platform. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and other places at Jian Ghomeshi. In the meantime, Mizun Bashi.